What if I told you that a midlife crisis is actually the result of a quarter-life crisis gone wrong? What if I told you that if you're experiencing a midlife crisis right now, you could probably actually pinpoint the time in your life where your inauthenticity took precedence over, and I should say your rationale took precedence over your truest desires. Although I've seen a wide variety of clients from ages 7 to 82 in private practice, most of my clients are between the ages of 25 and 35 and 45 and 55. So this shines a light on something for me that I'm not sure a lot of other people get the opportunity to see. So you assume like, oh, I'm going through a quarter life crisis or a midlife crisis. And there's two things I want to talk about here. Because what very likely happened is we get to this quarter life crisis, as we call it, and what ends up happening is we start to feel the pangs of this isn't what I was supposed to be doing. Like, I have layers on top of me that are actually guarding my heart from what it actually wants, but my rationale and my reason says I am supposed to be doing this to live in a world that, status quo says this is the rational thing to do. I have clients who are in PhD programs, and they don't even want the degree that they're getting. I have clients who have PhDs and do nothing with it. I have clients who have PhDs and stick with it miserably because that's simply what they can do at this time in their lives. So if a midlife crisis is a quarter life crisis that was addressed in limitation rather than expansion, inevitably, a midlife crisis has to occur. And then that's when people come to me and go, I wasn't supposed to do this. I wasn't supposed to live like this. And they go, oh my God, I only have this amount of time left, which is ironic because the person going through a quarter life crisis feels exactly the same tug going like, you kind of need to figure it out now because you don't have a lot of time. Like, you're going to miss something, which in and of itself is false. And we can't change something that we don't accept. And we oftentimes, especially my generation, we have to actually accept where we are in order to change it, because change is always, 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 always an inside job. I don't care what medication you take, what foods you eat. I don't care what doctors you see. Your change only ever happens because you willed that it be so. Change does not happen from the outside, and it's always an inside job. So that said, to the person who's going through a quarter life crisis, we come up against society and our true desires. And if that quarter life crisis is met by believing in the limitations of society, like it makes more rational sense for me to do it this way, or maybe I'm going to marry this guy even though I don't really want to because I'm feeling limited. Like, if I don't, then I'm going to be alone forever. So we make these decisions based on what we see other people doing at these times in our lives. And a lot of people are getting married, having babies, and we're going, oh my God, either my time is running out. And biologically, you know that, and intuitively, you know that if that's true for you. But a lot of times, I think people push fast forward on that natural impulse because they see their friends doing it, and they assume like, well, if they're doing it, then I should probably be doing it too. And if I'm not, then I'm failing. So right there, we jump ship from our own true heart's desires into what projected society says that we should be doing in order to be a success. And the people that I work with are often overdoers. Whether they are overachievers is a different story, but they are constantly doing. Whether their doing actually achieves anything or not, they can't sit down at their own party because they're doing dishes, and oftentimes it's to avoid true intimacy because they haven't tapped into their truth and their preferences and their being. They've always been doing. So say that you are a person who's constantly been doing. By the time that you're 25 to 35, and you've done all of these things and you realize they didn't make you feel better. You don't feel any sexier because you have a sexy body. You don't feel any more accomplished because you got your PhD. Your kids aren't actually the purpose that you thought they were going to be. Whatever it is that you kind of layered on top of yourself going, oh, that thing is going to make me feel better. We realize, again, because change is always an inside job, there's nothing on the outside that's going to make us feel better. So all of our doing has ultimately led to nothing. We might have some things to show for it, but on the inside, we still experience a sense of, I don't want to say inauthenticity, but kind of lack and poverty. Like, what is the thing? What am I supposed to do? Who can I be? How can I serve? If a quarter life crisis is met with that limitation, it is inevitable that when we are 45 to 55, we have to again come up against the wall that we didn't want to come up against in the first place. So what we do is, like, we come up against this wall, we go, oh, the wall's there, I'm just going to walk the edge of it. Whereas people who don't ever go through a quarter or a midlife crisis, they see the wall and they go, actually, I'm going to climb over that because that's not my life. That's not the life I want. So if you present me with a wall that society says I should be or do this, that doesn't actually work for me. I'm not going to go in the direction that I'm pointed. You can go either way. I'm actually going to climb over the wall. Those are outliers. Those are people who are genuinely tapped into what they want, which is my job to help people who are the overdoers and who've actually already experienced that, okay, I'm hitting a wall and I'm either going to follow in accordance with the wall, which that seems like the rational thing, but they look at me and go, Stace, but the wall just like, I got to get over it. And I don't know how, and I don't know if I'm even allowed, and I definitely don't know if I'm capable, but something feels radically limiting to me. If this time in our life is met with expansion, everyone who experiences this time in their life and experiences a midlife crisis, or a quarter life crisis, I should say, because this is more my target audience and more really where I think the starting happens, where we can change the trajectory of our lives. I love to do it with older people too, but my truth is, like, I want to be able to help humans not have to go through a quarter or a midlife crisis. When we meet this time in our lives from a place of love instead of fear, which is inevitably what the quarter life crisis is. It's shit. Time somehow feels like it has you roped into it. Uncertainty feels like it has you roped into it. There's all of these things that you're going, I'm pulled in all of these directions, and some of them look like me, some of them even feel like me, but none of them complete me. If we meet this time from a soulful sense of completion and say, I'm going to move in the direction, even if it makes no sense and it scares the living shit out of me, there's an inner knowing that says, like, it doesn't matter if it scares me, I have to do it. It doesn't matter if it makes no sense, I have to do it. And it takes a very clear person to get to that place, okay? It's not like overnight you're going to go, okay, well, I have to do this thing. No, it's like, maybe years of therapy or years of self-inflicted self-work get you to the place where you finally go, okay, I've removed enough societal and egoic layers that I can see it doesn't matter if this doesn't make sense to anybody else. It doesn't matter if it even doesn't make sense to me. That's my God's honest calling. And that is the siren, I think, that people hear this whisper, whisper, whisper when they come to me, and then all of a sudden it screams. And some people jump when it screams and get married to the first guy they see because it's screaming for security or it's screaming for a purpose. And they go, well, the only rational way I can come up with a purpose right now, because my job isn't cutting it, things aren't cutting it that I've tried, is maybe I should get married and have a baby. So out of fear, they hear the scream and they go, okay, well, I'm going to do what everybody else does in this time and I'm going to get married and have a baby. And that might be a really amazing truth for somebody, but for somebody else, that might be like prison. That might be absolute prison. So when we can operate from a place of, I am clear enough, which we have to get to that place, and that takes willingness first and foremost. It takes a decision to get there. To really address these things that come up in our face. Oh, that girl is living this kind of life. That dude is living this kind of life. I must be a failure, or I'm not producing enough. I'm not being of service enough. Whatever these I'm not enough things. So we kind of add to it with external things that inevitably cause chaos in our lives, because at some point, everything we created in fear, because we thought we didn't have enough time, we thought we might be alone. That's a fear-based creation. It will be undone. You can't create, what you create in love will always, always, always lead you in the direction of love, even if it comes undone. But what we create in fear will always add more fear. And to unravel that fear, the repercussions of that are divorce. They are losing your business to the repercussions are so uncertain so when we create a life in fear, ultimately we're going to hit that wall and it's going to hurt us. And then we're going to go, oh my God, I got to unravel all of this fear And we'll see that there's interchanging points at all of the webs that we have weaved, that when one thing comes apart, the other thing comes apart, and we're like, oh my God, I have to address that now too, because what we create in fear is just this trickle out effect over our entire lives. But what we create in love is like a focused linear, even though it's not linear, we kind of have to like follow our signature of our truth in the sky, but it feels linear to us because we are in our truth during it. If we can live by love and sticking true to what is actually going on, what our actual preferences are, instead of worldly projections, if we can do that in the quarter life crisis phase, we will not have a midlife crisis phase. Because we'll see that the only time is now. And the quarter and midlife thing, they don't actually exist. It's just when most people come up against the wall of what they have done that has been out of alignment with their actual truth, their actual heart, and their actual desires. And then they go, well, I don't have a lot of time to create that, so I better hurry up and jump on it. So if you're experiencing either of these things, please meet yourself. I don't care. I have clients who say, like, well, I'm 60 years old, and I deeply have compassion. I'm not 60 yet. I think I've lived many lifetimes, but I can't say what I'm going to be like in this lifetime when I'm 60. But when I can look at it objectively and see it from above, your age literally doesn't exist. You are the soul that you came, and you got the body that might be a little older. But if your belief is that the older you get, the more your body deteriorates, your belief is going to be an accurate reality. You're going to create that into your reality. So I don't care if you're 60 years old and feel like you have to quit your job, or that, I don't care what it is. My dad was 70 years old. He retired after working his entire life, and he became an author and started selling books. And he was pretty certain that he would just retire and die because he'd be so exhausted. And he made a decision, which was, oh, maybe I could write. And he started writing. He's written like 5 books since he retired. I'm just here to say that dude that wrote books is not the father I was raised with. I was raised with a man who was terrified, who was limited, who believed he had to work all day, every day. So then he would come home and feel like the only pleasure he had was in indulging in things that probably weren't the best for him. So he could escape the numbing reality that he wasn't actually living the life that he was supposed to be living. And then he turned 70, retired, and got the opportunity to do that. And he's not going, oh my God, I wish I would have done this earlier. He's going, fuck yeah, this shit's great, right? Like, I finally get to do this. If he would have done that, though, when he was 25, my life would have been substantial. First of all, you could say, maybe I wouldn't have existed, but just assume that I did. My life would have been so much better. And my work is actually in, it's this double-edged thing going on, because I want the best for my clients, specifically because I want the best for their children, okay? And this is not like I bypass my clients' needs or whatever. It's that I know that your stories lie in your DNA, and you're right now, if you're a woman, you're carrying the children that you are going to have. And if you already had children, they're carrying your cells and your stories. So when we do the work, we actually change generations to come, because they don't have to carry our baggage. So when we kind of throw out our garbage before we even have kids, that affects our cells on a serious cellular level, and they're not going to have to deal with our carnage. So I work with people so that basically the future doesn't have to work with their children. And not like we should strive to like not being worked on, because expansion is the ultimate goal here. So let's keep doing that and doing that. But what I mean is that place of desperation, they won't have to come from a limited place of desperation when they want to do work. They'll come from a place of expansion. So this is longer than I hoped it would be, but ultimately, the way that you can know if you are in a place of lack versus a place of expansion is to actually feel super present to right now, where you actually are. Be super grateful for it, because what everybody does in this time is escape. I should be there, I should be there, I should be there, I should be there. They do that even when they're sleeping. I should be up working, I should be up working. There's so many shoulds that they're missing everything. So as I said before, we can't change something that we don't accept. So to be in a place of expansion is ultimately to see life for what it is, and move from that place, not a place of wanting anything more. I'm just asking you for one day, set aside all of your desires to be somewhere different or want anything more than you have. And when you can pinpoint that voice that just, or I should say that like the thought that sees that in your space, the thought that can go, oh wow, this is interesting. I don't want, okay, it's interesting not to want. It's interesting to really be grateful for what I have. That place will show you and catapult your life to your purpose, to where you're supposed to be. But most people never ever get to that place of quiet enough to, or that place of vision to say like, okay, this is where I'm starting and where can I go from here? They go, fuck, I should have gone back there. And they're living in the past and they're rejecting the future and they're just not here. And those are the people that are going to experience the midlife, the quarter life, and then the afterlife crisis, most likely. That's a reality. People who do this in life will do it in the afterlife and come back and have to figure it out all over again. So ideally, I'm the person who's here to tell you, stop it. When you're meeting limitation, just look for the expansion. When you hit the wall, don't take the directions from the wall because that's what everybody else is doing. Really decide what you want on the other side of that wall and if it's worth it to you to figure out a way to climb over it. Okay? Because your heart needs to be set free. If it's not, you're going to end up in lack and where you don't want to be. And then you're going to feel regretful that you didn't do all of the things that you came here to do. And then inevitably you're going to have to come here and do them again. So dude, you got this one life in this one body. You got all of these cells with all of these stories that are affecting you or affecting your children. And oh, this is the other thing I really want to say. I know this is longer than I expected, but this is absolutely vital. When we go through experiences like childbirth, marriage, a car accident, it can be anything. Turning 18, turning 19, any significant time in your life is going to molecularly shift something in you because so say that your mother experienced a lot of baggage. Say it was even you. She gave birth to you and she was not prepared for it. She didn't know what to do with you. And say she was 30 years old when she gave birth to you. The day that you become 30, if your mother didn't resolve those doubts in herself, you are going to immediately, just all of a sudden, you'll be 30 and go, why am I in such self-doubt? I don't even think I can take care of myself. I have no idea what's coming up, but all of a sudden I'm stuck, okay? Or when you get married, if your whole relationship shifts like that because you got married, it might not even be your shit. It might be your grandparents' shit, and they didn't resolve it. So here is your opportunity to resolve the stories that came before you. So it might even be so that a midlife or quarter life crisis are yours, but they are somebody else's that you're being triggered into resolving for the sake of yourself and future generations. So I just want you to be aware that especially if you've experienced any trauma around certain ages, the second that your kid reminds you of that symbolism of your trauma, you're going to disconnect. And a lot of parents aren't aware of this. They're not embodied enough to go like, okay, I just totally am rejecting this kid because I'm rejecting the part of myself that didn't heal what this kid is at the age of representing for me. So it's also important to ask yourself, when you think that you're in a midlife, quarter life, any kind of life crisis, what was going on for my parents at this time? Or when you look at your children and go, why? Like, who is this person? Go, what was going on vibrationally for me when I was their age? And see if you can link it up, because I will assure you that they are linked, and you'll see how deeply connected we all are and why it's so important, epigenetically speaking, to work out these issues so our children don't have to work them out for us, and so we don't end up in a midlife crisis, okay? So ask yourself, what was going on with my parents or my grandparents or myself at this time, if you have children, when things come up for you, and definitely meet your limitations with a sense of expansion instead of a limitation. Don't create out of fear that you're not going to have enough time, you're not going to have enough, blah, 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 because you will inevitably have to undo all of the things that you create from that vibration of not enough. And that's when people come to me and go, oh, how do I recreate all of the mess that I've created? So ideally you won't need to do that, okay, if you follow these steps. So I'm Stacy Hoch. Check me out on my website, www.stacyhoch.com, StacyHoch.com. if you dig the content, and I will be in touch. Thanks for being here, guys. Bye. Mwah.